It's no secret that Murder Drones is my favorite web series on the internet. But I am a reviewer / critic first and foremost, so when I see a flaw in something, I highlight it and discuss it, no matter how much I enjoy the product that has said flaw. This eventually led me to creating a negative review for the most recent episode of Murder Drones. I point out a lot of flaws within the episode, but despite this, there was a scene that I missed that actually ended up being a prime example of an aspect of the show that many of the show's biggest haters often bring up as a reason why they don't enjoy the show. The biggest criticism I have seen of Murder Drones is that it does not take itself seriously due to the overabundant amount of comedy. The entire concept of Murder Drones is that a colony of worker drones is being brutally hunted down by the disassembly drones. The disassembly drones are so feared that the worker drones have resorted to hiding in an underground bunker. In the first episode, this fear is encapsulated perfectly when we see a worker drone leave his own daughter for dead as she begs him for his help because of how scared he is of the very sight of a disassembly drone. This scene not only emphasizes how terrifying disassembly drones are, but how traumatized the worker drones are from the atrocities the disassembly drones have committed. Now, what if I told you that 2 episodes later, the worker drones, who have had their family members slaughtered, have been actively taught to fear the disassembly drones, and have been driven into hiding after going through genocide at the hands of the disassembly drones, are now applauding one for being elected their prom queen. And the reason for doing so is because the school bully threatened them to do it, fearing her more than the being specifically designed to kill them. That's kind of a tonal whiplash, right? Well, believe it or not, that's not the scene the show's naysayers shine a spotlight on. No, the scene that is the prime example of this flaw that has caused so many to actively dislike the show is in the 4th episode, Cabin Fever. The premise for this episode is a class of worker drones go out camping. Now, as I said earlier, the worker drones are hiding in a bunker to avoid being hunted by the disassembly drones, yet they have no issue with leaving the bunker to go camping in the middle of the night. The setup for this episode doesn't make much sense by the show's own logic, but that's not what we are here to talk about. What we are here to talk about is a scene where the disassembly drones arrive to be their camp counselors, and the worker drone's reaction is obviously fear until one of the disassembly drones shoot a worker drone in the head to make them fall in line. Now, taking into consideration that the worker drone's entire lifestyle is centered around avoiding the disassembly drones at all costs, one would presume that the worker drone's natural reaction would be to play along until they have a chance to escape, but I kid you not, less than a minute later, they swarm the disassembly drones with admiration and consider them to be their new friends. It's very obvious that this is played off as a joke, but doesn't this joke undermine the entire foundation of the series? All the sense of terror and the worker drone's desperate attempts at self-preservation after going through a terrifying calamity is what is supposed to make the viewers care and empathize for the worker drones in the first place. But if the worker drones themselves are not even going to be fazed after witnessing the death of one of their own kind, then why should the viewer even care? So that ultimately leaves the question, is Murder Drones too comedic for its own good? Well, I rewatch each and every episode just focusing on the comedy to see how necessary it is, and if it really detracts from the show as much as the haters say. Horror and comedy is a tough combination to pull off. Horror relies on suspense and anticipation that you have to take seriously for it to be effective. Comedy relies on the suspension of disbelief, which is only possible if you don't take the product too seriously. Those who don't enjoy Murder Drones more than likely try to take the show too seriously, but when you have the primary threat to the main characters accepting the title of prom queen and riding in a canoe with the very beings they were designed to kill, the disparity between horror and comedy becomes highlighted, making the viewer ask a simple question: does the show want me to take it seriously or not? Well, I think the answer to that is no. The show is comedy first, horror second, and the very first frame of the series is a visual meta joke, and a handful more of them are made before the disassembly drones are even mentioned. If the audience were to use everything that is shown before the title card as a first impression, the show would be presenting itself to be a comedy with violent aspects that aren't supposed to be serious enough to disturb or unnerve the viewer. The dark aspects that set the foundation of the show, such as the extinction of the humans and the worker drone genocide, are never presented in a way that would insinuate that the viewer is supposed to take it seriously. But then why should we care? Why should we care about the safety of the worker drones? Well, I don't think we are supposed to. The only character's safety we are supposed to care about is Uzi's, because she is the only character outside of Khan who recognizes how terrible the genocide was. As for everyone else, including Khan, they are all idiots. None of them take the situation they are in seriously enough for the viewer to feel like these characters have been negatively affected in any way, which makes it hard to sympathize with them, making it easier for the viewer to watch them get killed, because we are not supposed to be emotionally invested in them. There's a reason why characters like Rebecca and Brayden are intentionally written to be disdainful or completely oblivious to the danger they are in. And if you're wondering if this same rule applies to Lizzie, it would, but in episode 3 she does show some form of empathy and guilt for the things she's doing, making the viewer subconsciously care about her more. Not to mention her character interactions are always entertaining, while Brayden and Rebecca only really had one episode to interact with anyone, and barely did so. So now that we have established that we aren't supposed to care about the lives of most of the worker drones, that still leaves the two abrasive V scenes. V is a psychotic robot designed for mass murder. She has done and continues to commit acts of cruelty on worker drones, yet she keeps finding herself in these uncharacteristic situations that completely mitigate these aspects of her character, be it becoming prom queen or being a camp counselor for the worker drones. From the moment that N said he had a crush on her in the first episode, it was pretty clear that this character was going to undergo an arc, which means her character is going to change throughout the show due to the experiences she goes through. If she was 100% completely evil and not supposed to be redeemed, she would have been killed off in the first episode. These scenes do serve as important character development moments for her character, with the prom scene showcasing that she can be swayed from her obsession with hunting down the worker drones, and the camp counselor scenes showing that she can actually enjoy being around them. These comical situations do make her less of a threat, but that is the point. She is supposed to become less cruel and intimidating as the show continues. That is her arc. Now, having said all that, and having analyzed the comedy over the 4 episodes we have available at the time of writing, I will admit the disparity between comedy and seriousness in this show is kind of an issue. Those who have followed Liam Vickers' work throughout the years know that this guy can write some really intense and heart-wrenching scenes. And if you want an example, listen to Weston Pass, it's incredible. But ever since Puppet Game, he has started to put more of a focus on comedy over intensity. I think comedy has its place and is great for appealing to a more widespread audience, but the fact that I came to the conclusion that the worker drones' lives are supposed to be thrown away for the sake of comedy or entertainment isn't exactly a positive result. Murder Drones is an easy watch, one that is very entertaining, but the lack of intensity or any real emotional stakes is what is holding this show back from reaching great heights. The first time I saw Khan leave Uzi behind, I was genuinely shocked and extremely interested in how his decision will affect things later on. There have been plenty of shocking scenes since then, but they have all been plot twists or reveals, nothing quite as simple as watching a character make a shockingly irredeemable decision. What I'm asking for is a little bit more nuance. Something that can ascend the show itself from being just a show to only turn your brain on for theory crafting. I want some more emotional and serious scenes to just help balance out the comedy some more. I'm not really worried that this won't happen after all, we are only halfway through the series, but after looking into the criticisms of the show and looking at the show from that perspective, I did see some of the points they were trying to make. I don't think this show is overly comedic at all. I think the comedy works very well, but the lack of scenes meant to be taken more seriously can make the comedy feel overabundant. I will give an honorable mention to when Uzi thinks her father is dead in episode 2, but the feeling of loss and mourning is overshadowed by trying to process everything that just happened with Solver J. I do believe that episode 5 will be more on the serious emotional side and will be the answer to these criticisms, but if we are going off the merit of the first 4 episodes that are currently available, these criticisms still apply. Anyways, those are my thoughts on the subject. I would like to hear yours, and as the show goes on, perhaps my views will change, but to answer the question, is Murder Drones too comedic? The answer is a hard no, but it's just not serious enough.
Classic toxic masculinity, Chad. That's never gonna end up problematic.
Ugh, kinda cringe.
Ew, yeah, ugh. Oh, give me a minute.